Support for your public radio station comes from our members and from the Golisano Foundation, supporting Move to Include programming on WXXI and working with the community to lead change toward the inclusion of people with intellectual and physical disabilities. Share your thoughts at movetoinclude.org.
From WXXI News, this is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. Our connection this hour was made in an elementary school classroom where a man is giving a presentation. Corey R. Taylor attended the elementary school in downstate New York when he was a young boy. Today, he's taking questions from students. Questions like, were you scared to go to school? And was it hard to get friends? And how does it feel to always be walking around and having people look at you? Corey answers the questions with patience and honesty. The students listen with rapt attention and respect. They seem to quietly absorb his answers, especially when he says, in answering the question about people staring at him, that he feels different. Corey was born with craniofacial deformity. He underwent 50 surgeries before the age of 19. An award-winning documentary called Don't Look Away tells his remarkable story and explores how his facial difference has affected his daily life. Corey is open about how these experiences have shaped his personality. You can see the film during an online screening event next week, and we really can't recommend it enough. But first, we talk with Corey Taylor and filmmaker Joseph Lingad as part of WXXI's Dialogue on Disability Week, and I'd like to welcome our guests. Corey is with us, and it's nice to have you, Corey. How are you?
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
And welcome to Joseph Lingad, the filmmaker of Don't Look Away. Hello, Joseph. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, Evan. Thanks for having us. We're really honored.
So the event is going to be hosted by WXXI's Move to Include initiative. It's next Thursday, January 22nd, 6 to 8 p.m. It's a free virtual screening of the documentary and a workshop by the filmmakers. It's going to be an interactive workshop on the impact of the film. There will be discussion, resource sharing. And this film was named Best Short Doc Film from 2024 at the Toronto Documentary and Short Film Festival. It placed second in the Best Short Doc Film 2024 at the New Jersey Documentary Film Festival. And I have to say, Joseph, last evening, we were kind of getting ready for this program at the last minute here, and producer Megan Mack sent me a note saying, I just watched the film, and it is awesome. It is great. It is powerful. And I know it's affected a lot of people. How do you feel about it?
I feel good. I mean, I wanted to make this film just obviously to raise awareness about this community that's often overlooked or rejected or represented, and that's one reason why I wanted to make this film. Another reason was my own personal struggles of having a facial difference. I was born with a cleft lip and cleft palate, and through Corey, I was able to tell, in some ways, my story through him.
So let's talk about Corey's story here. And Corey, I want to give you plenty of space to talk about it. But my first question is, why did you agree to do this in a film? Why did you want this story out there for the public?
It's actually funny. The timing could not have been better because I had just at the time I wrote basically like a personal essay, and I wanted to see if I could get it like published because I wanted to share my story. I felt like people needed to stop judging books by its cover, and I felt like my story could help do that. And honestly, I felt like the experiences that I have had in my life were almost too much to keep to myself because it's like there's so much to it that I just wanted to just share my journey with the world. So when I found Joseph, he understood where I was coming from as a person. He understood my facial difference. And when he came to me with this, when I found him through, oh my God, I forget the name. He'll tell you the name. But I had emailed this a group, and I messaged this woman and I said, "Here's my story. Can you, if you know anybody that would want to do something with this, let me know." And she shared it, like published it on their website and everything. And she's like, "I don't really hear, much about stuff like that, but if I do, I'll let you know." Next thing you know, Joseph contacts her, I think a few weeks later, And she's like, Corey, you're not going to believe this. And the rest is history.
Wow. So let's talk about your story. You're from Middletown, New York, middle of what? In the film, you describe it as the middle of nowhere. And you were born with craniofacial deformity. Your skull and face didn't develop typically. So what did doctors tell your parents about your outlook and your condition?
When I was born, they literally told my parents that I was going to be deaf, blind, and mentally handicapped if I lived at all. They basically said that there was, I was going to, if I lived, I was going to die by the age of 13, 16, 18. Look at me now, 38 years old, still here. They said, because they literally, my dad always tells the story of Dr. Lit Trenter, who was one of my first surgeons. And he's one who my family owes him their life. She always says, he held your brain in the palm of his hand.
Oh, wow.
Now, probably a bit over dramatic, but not by much. But that kind of tells you where the surgeries were as far as the severity. So to go from that and doctors saying, yeah, he's going to, basically die, or he's going to have a lot of issues. And next thing you know, my mom starts seeing, they're saying I'm completely blind. My mom's telling them, I don't think that's true. The doctors tell my mother, you're seeing what you want to see. She takes a penny, says, Corey, throws the penny on the floor and says, pick that up. I got off her lap, bent down, picked it up. And hands it to the doctor, and he says, oh, I guess he can see. Which told me at a very young age, doctors don't know everything.
Wow. And so how is your vision today, and how did your vision develop over the years?
My vision today is I have limited vision in my right eye. Through the years, because as I'm getting older, different stuff happens. Like I have cataracts that unfortunately can't be treated because I have something. It's a slit-like cut in my eye, basically, from just the way I was born. And if they do anything like laser eye surgery, it could literally basically zap the eye. So stuff like that isn't doable. So I have issues with glare now that I really didn't have as bad before. So, but I've been managing, I just had surgery where they were able to lift the eye a little bit, and just doing that has helped a lot. So just stuff like that, and protecting it as much as I can with glasses and things like that as much as possible to basically keep the eye physically safe as well as safe from strain.
When were you old enough? When were you old enough to understand if kids at school were looking at you differently, or making comments, or even whether it was affecting your ability to make friends?
At a very young age, I barely even knew anything was wrong with me, and I knew if anybody said anything, my cousin Justin, who we were the same age, but he was my hero as a kid. He was the one who, anyone messed with me, I just stuck with him. So if anyone even said hi to me the wrong way, he would be like, "What'd you just say to him?" So I had a lot of support and protectors that for a very at a very young age, never even bothered me. It wasn't until I was around I want to say between 8 and 10 that I really started to understand it. And it actually took me until a few years earlier. I was 4 or 5 years old. I got into a fight with my cousin, and he pushed me. So I get up and I rub my nose, and I'm like, oh, he flattened my nose.
Oh.
Now, again, that tells you right there, at a very young age, I had no idea anything was even wrong. It wasn't really until the later years in school that I was like, oh God, all right, people are looking. I'm not going to be getting a girl because of how I look and this and that. It wasn't, like I said, the 10 and above that it really started to get into my head.
And
I hope that helps.
Yeah, and there are clips in the film where we see people staring at you in different public places. And when you explained that to the elementary school students, you handled it very graciously. You said that these people are not used to seeing someone with your face. How do you handle those moments, those people?
It depends on the day, to be honest, because some days I'll notice I'm looking, and I'll look back and I'll smile or smirk to kind of be like, I see you, it's okay. but also to be like, hey, I see you, so watch it. But on other days, it's more like I look and be like, here we go, oh brother, and like it's just kind of like on those days, it's just like give me a break, you know. But to be fair, those days again, even on those days, I say it's not their fault. This isn't them being hateful. It isn't them. You know, it's not like they're coming up to being like, "What the hell happened to you?" These are people that are looking because they don't know, so they're watching to kind watch how I am, see how I act. And honestly, if watching me makes it so they don't judge me or think they know, look,
Well, and what they couldn't know is that you had 50 surgeries before the age of 19 on your face. And in the film, we learned that, through your sister, who, you have this interesting relationship with. Your sister said that you had a lot of hopes before a lot of the surgeries, a lot of hopes that you would come out feeling different or feeling like you looked different. And there was often disappointment. Can you describe what that was like?
yeah. So as a, having all these surgeries and going into this room with a team of doctors and they're like the main doctor is looking at you almost like you're a piece of art and he's like talking about this is going to be great, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. It puts ideas in your head and you start to figure you're going to go in looking like this and come out looking like Brad Pitt or Matthew McConaughey. And then what ends up happening is a lot of these surgeries are not a one and done. A lot of these surgeries are a process, and they didn't exactly explain that enough to me as a child. And next thing you know, I'm having a surgery where I have a blue wax brace on my nose. And I'm thinking when it gets taken off, I'm going to look amazing. The doctor at the time, who was a fellow, he like a student doctor, who to this day I hope I get to be in a room with to handle issues. He literally walked in and again, this is a wax brace nose that has like stitches attached to it. He goes snip, snip, and rips it off to the point that I went, oh, like it hurt. He then my mom's trying to warn me, Corey, it's not gonna look like this before she can even get the rest out. He grabs a mirror and shoves it in my face. It was a moment that to this day, like I will never forget because it was like I was looking into a horror movie. And the way that I looked at that moment was not how I was ever expecting to look after recovering from surgery. And it broke me because I went in there thinking this is going to be the big one because they were saying how big the surgery was going to be. And I thought that meant it was going to be done, or at least again, like I would have loved some preparation, but no warning or anything, and that just looking at in the mirror and seeing that, and then needing to go out into the public with basically I had no skin on my nose at all. It was literally like this was here, but this was not here. They wanted me to go out, and they were like, "Yeah, now we're going to take some pictures, so we want you to go back into the waiting room and wait." My mom said to them, there's other children out there. Yeah, so one, you're not going to make them, have them see this and think, oh my God, what's happening to me when I go in there? And two, you're not going to have them staring at him. Mm. So he rolls his eyes and gives like a little bandage and puts it on my nose. And he had no remorse, no issue with it at all. So that made it a whole situation a lot worse, where not only did I look the way that I did after surgery, thinking I was going to look great, but this guy completely he did not care, and he was a medical professional.
I'm sorry, man. But I also know, Corey, you've had other procedures since, and there's this moment, and I want to ask the filmmaker, Joseph Lingad, where you ask Corey if he feels handsome, and then you ask him if he likes his face. And, you get some interesting responses, but having been through what you've been through, I mean, it's different, Joseph, but you've had, sort of your own journey in kind of accepting your face. Tell me about that question, those questions, and why you wanted to pose that to Corey, Joseph.
I asked him, as I told Corey, all the questions I've asked him are the questions I asked myself, and similar to what Corey said in the film, I kind of feel the same way. You know, it's one day I feel decent, and the next day I feel like Freddy Krueger, so to speak. But there wasn't all the questions that I asked either Corey or to the other, because the film is actually a part of a larger film. Um, it's all the questions I've experienced, and I didn't want to pull any sucker punches, so to speak, or TMZ questions. Um, and so they were just genuine questions that I myself had thought about and experienced.
Yeah, I mean, Joseph, I want to say this in I think as delicate a way as I can here, because most of the audience today has not gone through what you've gone through or gone through what Corey's gone through, but we're trying to, I think, really open our minds and learn about different experiences. But at the same time, anybody listening right now probably has something that you don't like about yourself. I mean, like, that's a very human
Right.
thing. That's a very common thing. And accepting those
Right.
things and not beating yourself up for those things is a process. And so what works for you, Joseph? You said there's some days you feel good and some days you feel like Freddy Krueger. What works for you to kind of get in a better mental space?
I think age, age,
The wisdom of age?
I mean, wisdom of age of not caring. I think filming 8 years, I filmed this. So this project is, like, as I mentioned earlier, is part of a larger story. I started back in 2017, and Corey's one of 4 characters I've been following, and listening to their stories and their experiences have actually helped me grow and kind of like just deal with my facial differences, or with my own facial difference. And that has helped me quite a bit grow, and just to like accept, like, yes, I have scars, my face is a little crooked, my nose is crooked. And also, what has helped me is I've been lucky enough to be a father to a 5-year-old son, even though he would tell you he's almost 6. Um, that you know um it's frightened him and scared him, and I asked, like, what made it, what I mean I don't know why I asked him. He's only 5. But like I said, well, what about it, like, why did that person.
And we then tell each other, well, you're an idiot. No, you're an idiot. And then we don't talk for about a week. Brother and sister stuff. But we're in like a much better relationship now as adults than we were as kids.
Well, I am glad to hear that. I'm going to get to some of the challenges you faced with employment and housing, but I want to tell people you're an actor. You found some success working in films. You were cast in the film A Different Man, for example. And can you tell us a little bit about that experience, and we'll talk about what you want to do with your acting career?
Yeah, definitely. So when acting was something that literally happened when we started this, and it was random because I was doing stuff on TikTok where I was doing videos and about my life, about living with a facial difference, stuff like that. And sorry, ignore that.
It's okay, man.
And it's my mail. Just ignore it. Um, so when I was doing TikTok, I actually had someone reach out because I was being very smart with my tags. I was putting facial difference, acting, actor, because I started seeing like acting challenges and stuff. I was like, I want to try that. So I started doing it, and someone reached out, and next thing you know, I was an extra with A Different Man. They then called me back because they wanted me to have another role where they wanted to put me in another scene. When that happened, I was like, okay, I want to do this. I want to do more of this. This isn't it, because it just felt like I felt at home on the set, and I always knew I wanted to do so. Like, I wanted to write because I thought with this, someone like me was never going to be able to do anything respectful in Hollywood, because growing up, 10 years old in 1998, the South Park era let's be honest, if they had someone like me, not necessarily South Park, but the movies and stuff that was out that back then, they wouldn't have used me appropriately. They would have used me as the butt of jokes. They would have used me in like horrific ways. So as a kid, I was like, it never was even a thought. So then when A Different Man happened, I literally said, like, I want to do this. And I have now had 4 to 5 roles since then. And I'm hoping that I had to take a year off because I've been trying to get dental work done that went completely haywire because of dental people. I had to take an entire year off, but now this year I'm actually about to get a bridge and about to be able to resume acting. And I am so excited to get back into it because I was able to do one job last year at the end of the year, and it just left me wanting more. So hopefully it's the start of something very special because I think Hollywood could use someone that looks like me.
Well,
not just in roles that are different, but roles that are everyday roles, because this could give a lot of layers to any role.
Well, so let's talk about that. So there's a couple, I think, interesting points from the film about that. There's the idea that, there's a chance that someone with your facial condition could get typecast. And while you say that, Hollywood could really use the look of your face in very interesting ways to tell stories, you also, if it ends up that you're typecast, you're sort of good with it because you want to work, right? Like you'll take it. So ultimately, what do you want most, and what do you think is possible for your acting career now?
Right now, the thing I want most is, and like it's like a bucket list goal, but I want to work with Bill Lawrence, who created Scrubs and Shrinking, and so that is the
put it out in the universe, man. I mean, like you gotta put it out in the universe if you're gonna go get it, right?
But like other things, I've thought about, I would love to get into like even soap operas and stuff like that, because soap operas needs a character with an actual facial difference. They need to dive into those kinds of stories, because the things that they've done in the past with like stuff like soap operas has been like someone gets burned and it's, oh God, I'm a monster, and it just makes me want to rip their heads off. So I feel like if they set a precedence of having someone with a facial difference on a soap opera, it would actually get rid of some of those tropes, while at the same time give even more, there's a lot more meat to that, there's a lot more layers to that they could do stuff with. So I think it would set up cool precedents. But really, I just want, my thing is, if I can sink my teeth into it, if it's something respectful and not something that punches down, I'm happy to do it, because I love, like I said, I love being on the sets. I love being there and being able to contribute, and I just love acting.
Well, so it sounds like the kind of the line for you is the stereotype that someone with your facial condition is always miserable, is always sort of the monster, as opposed to an interesting person who may have an interesting backstory, but also just has something to contribute beyond just what people would see right away.
Oh, without a doubt. And even being a horror character, even that, if it's something that isn't disrespectful, I'm okay with, because in a sense, I kind of understand, if you have an interesting shape to your face or something like that, even something as simple as just a different, shape. If it's something that they think, oh man, this would be very, this would be very useful, it's not like, oh my God, hey, because you look horrible, so we want you. No, it's just there happens to be some, things that, with makeup and stuff would work a little better, and I can understand that, because it's not coming from a bad place. So stuff like that, I'm even okay with. If it's not something where it's like I actually just did something where I asked them outright at the very beginning. I said, I don't know the story, so I just need to make sure this character isn't like a child predator or anything like that, because I'm not starting that. That is one area where I'm not going to set the idea, facial difference, child predator, stuff like that.
Right.
I'm not playing.
What was your favorite experience so far with acting?
Oh, see, I can't even give one because I've been working with someone on his YouTube show, and we've been basically he'll tell me like, okay, I want you to do something kind of like this. I'll give him, a few different takes where I'm able to really like play with my creativity, and it has been amazing every time we've done it. We've done it twice so far. But then I've worked on stuff like A Different Man. I just got done doing a horror movie, Pitchfork Retreat. Both of those were amazing because they were like, in one, it was like seeing the production and all that because it was a SAG film. And then doing Pitchfork Retreat where they actually like had like they were doing something where I had to be like sucked basically into hell. And they used like a harness and I was actually able to like be like do a little stunt. And that for me, I was like, that was cool. So everything I've done, I've worked with an artist who is basically working on his first films, and I got to work with him and like watch him and like work with him, and everybody I've worked with so far has just all it's done is make me want to do it more because they've all been amazing.
I'm,
So
re-
I can't pick.
I'm reading the Pitchfork Retreat summary, man. That is not a retreat you want to go on. Matt, Mandy, and Nikolai journey to a secluded island for a life-changing competition at a high-stakes horror retreat. Yeah, but the prize comes with a price. I guess so. Why do you like horror, Corey?
I love psychological horror. Like for me, like I'm not really into gore. Like movies like Saw are
Yeah.
meh
Yeah.
to me.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
psychological, I love it. And I will say this movie, like I went to the premiere, and I'm gonna I can't use the word, but it was a mind bleep where I'm watching this, and it was like, okay, I wasn't expecting that. Like it's a great horror movie.
Your
And
acting credit in that film is Tortured Soul #1. That sounds very
yep,
interesting.
it's a really interesting movie, dark but very interesting, and I love being a part of it.
All right, so the man loves to work. Corey R. Taylor loves to work. Put it out there in the universe to Bill Lawrence or anybody else who's listening, and you never know. I love the ambition there. And Joseph Lingad, as you listen to Corey talk about the way that Hollywood would view someone with a facial difference, I'm curious to know what your thoughts are about maybe the narrow casting that society or even Hollywood would give someone versus the broader opportunities that someone like Corey hopes are out there for him.
Yeah, I mean, part of the film was to the reason why I wanted to make this film to kind of dispel this misconception about people with facial differences, like as like the character Scar in Lion King, or the bad guys in Star Wars, or they all had a facial difference, and I kind of want to like demystify that, or and kind of like make films more accessible, uh, especially for the people with facial differences, and so that's part of the reason why I wanted to make this film, is to kind of dispel that myth and provide more nuance of who we are,
Mm-hmm.
and actually, and also just representation. I mean, A Different Man, the director, Aaron Schoenberg, I always mispronounce his name. He has a cleft lip and a cleft palate, and all his films are about people with facial differences. I think his latest films with Adam Pearson. I think you might know him. He's the British actor. And people like that, films like his and mine, hopefully, and others, so forth. Hopefully, that kind of brings more awareness and more representation in media, and not just Hollywood, but just in general.
Well, here's a question from a listener for Corey. He says, you got a role as a background extra that then progressed, and now it's what you want to do. He says, I got a role as a background extra once, and I expected a little bit more from it. I found the experience to be challenging because it's easy to feel not as wanted if one is not selected on the ideas in their own head. So how do you get around that feeling pushing forward of wanting to do more when you're an extra? There's probably some people out there that are wondering how you pushed through that. Corey?
Honestly, like the way that day played out, like I just went in there saying like when they like I knew like what they wanted me to do, which is basically a guy in a waiting room. So I knew that one of the things they got me because of my facial difference. So when I went in there, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna have this idea, I'm just gonna be like I'm gonna sit this way, I'm gonna look up, then I'm gonna look down. That way they see the whole thing. And just when you go and you're doing like extra work or whatever, just be a fly on the wall because being an extra or a background actor, you're not necessarily there to be the main thing. You're not there to be like the person that they even like that they really pay attention to. This is something I actually just read and I liked it. It said you're the background actor, you're essentially the accessories there. And if you are a background actor and you're thinking to yourself like, not enough, then keep doing more. Because the more you do, the more actors, the more cast, and the more crew are seeing you. And the more they see you, the more they think, okay, this guy's reliable, he's dependable, he's this, he's that, and that will go a long way. So just keep doing it because the more you do it, the more eyes will eventually be on you.
All right, Corey, let's talk a little bit about working outside of acting. In the film, we hear you say that you were applying for 30 to 40 jobs a week. What has it been like in your life trying to get jobs, and what do you want the audience to understand about that experience?
For me, like getting the work, like the jobs that I have wanted to get, like newspaper stuff like that, like the stuff that I've gotten, it's basically like I fell into. When I started trying to like apply, like to like get job interviews, everything like that, nobody would even basically look at me. And it wasn't, and I'm not going to say it's because of my face because it really wasn't. It was just that the job market was what it was and is what it is. And at the time, like I had no experience. I did not really even know how to do a resume. I had jobs that I've done, but it was like it wasn't enough. So every time I would find something, then I would think, okay, this might amount to something, but it never did. Then I actually started working with the Commission for the Visually Impaired, who I've been working with my whole life, and they basically helped me get in to an internship, more or less. And it was a job where it was more or less like an office type job, and like I enjoyed it. It was easy to do because I was on the computer all the time anyway. So I was doing okay, but then it was ending, and the person was like, "All right, so I know you have to leave here, but you're allowed to go to another place," they said, and I know somebody. And she's like, "It's not going to be this job, but it's going to be a separate job." And I go to this other job, and like I said, I was doing the computer work and all this, and I was working with someone who was very, very supportive. And then I go working in a job where basically they didn't even tell me what on the computer I was supposed to do. It was for like a marketing company, and I told them like, "Well, what exactly do you want me to do?" "Oh, here's this magazine. Go through and find the places that we might want to work with." And at the time, I'm like, okay, I'm legally blind, which they knew. They're giving me a random ass catalog that they want me to like go through, and they weren't communicating. And it became very clear I was basically just there to be there, and it was basically a favor to the person that I had been working with before. And it was a situation where I was not treated very respectfully, but I was treated like someone who wasn't even there, more or less. And anytime I would try and help, they would act like, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing. Just let us do it. It was...
go ahead.
That's it.
Okay, well, then let's talk a little bit about what your experience has been like moving into your own apartment. And in the film, we see you move into your own apartment, but why has it been difficult to find housing for you?
So with the apartment, it wasn't hard like finding that housing. I basically was living, was helping take care of my mother, And I was at the point where she was doing well enough where I wanted to get out on my own because we lived in the middle of nowhere, and not driving, I could not do anything. There was very little like Uber at the time, stuff like that. So I ended up getting into a housing program that initially it was a situation where with this housing program, they had a set of like apartments that they had like basically already rented for their program. You had to go to one of them first so that they could see that you can do it and that everything's okay. And then they basically say you can move wherever and we will help you pay rent. So when I found that, I was ecstatic. They had me go, basically the only apartment they had available was far, like about almost an hour from my home, the people I knew. And that made it very difficult because to go from being a kid who was essentially, sheltered because of how much I went through and who had family all around me, all of a sudden now basically going from a tiny town into a city where I don't know anybody, I don't know anyone, I don't know anything about that area. That was completely like out of my element. So that landed me there for a few months, which then led me to another apartment closer to home. But then I finally ended up 5 years ago where I'm at now, where I'm never leaving here unless they throw me out because it's in a great spot where I can literally I'm in a little city, but I can go down the street and get food and take an Uber and no problem. Like I actually can live. And that feels really good considering for the longest time I had to rely on other people. Now, I mean, I still do Uber, but it's a lot less demeaning when it's stuff like Uber than, hey, can you pick me up on your way to work? Like, it's a lot more free.
Well, I'm really glad to get to know you here, and I want to remind listeners and viewers here that the event Don't Look Away virtual screening and workshop is happening a week from tomorrow. It's next Thursday, January 22nd from 6 to 8 p.m. It's hosted by WXXI's Move to Include initiative. It's a free virtual screening of the documentary we've been talking about, and then a workshop by the filmmakers on the impact of the film. There's going to be discussion and more. And we'll have links so you can get it all lined up if you want to check it out. The film's like 35 minutes, and again, it's winning awards for a reason. It's really outstanding. I want to congratulate Joseph Lingad. Congrats on this film. Briefly, Joseph, what's next for you?
Trying to make a feature film. As I mentioned earlier, that this is part of a larger story that includes 3 other adults, including myself. And I mentioned earlier that actually, 8 years I've been filming this. At first I didn't want to put myself in the film, but over time and becoming a father, they've gave me the courage in telling my story. Because I initially thought, oh, I could tell my story through Corey and the 3 adults, but I realized I'd be selling the story short and the community if I didn't tell my story as well. So that's what I'm doing now, or that's what I'm doing next. Yeah. Which I'm continuing to film and edit and seek funding, so forth.
Well, good luck to you, Joseph. Thank you for making time for the program today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Joseph Lingad, filmmaker of Don't Look Away. Corey R. Taylor, hey, we'll see you on screen somewhere, and someone's going to go, I know where I knew that guy. Connections. Thank you, Corey. Thanks for telling your story. Good luck to you. Awesome conversation here from all of us at Connections. Thanks for being with us on our different platforms. Thanks for joining us, however you are joining us. We're back with you tomorrow on member-supported public media.
This program is a production of WXXI Public Radio. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, management, or underwriters. The broadcast is meant for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or use in another medium without expressed written consent of WXXI is strictly prohibited. Connections with Evan Dawson is available as a podcast. Just click on the Connections link at WXXInews.org.